My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and this is Chaotic Riffs Magazine. You can find us on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. And I'm speaking with my good friend Terry Leroi from the band Leroi and Granny for Barrel. How you doing today, Terry?
Doing great, Jason. Good to hear from you again, man. Actually, just a quick technicality. It's Leroi.
Leroi. Okay,
I know
thanks.
that it's confusing. It's French, and it could be pronounced that way, but we like to pronounce it Leroi. And if you really want to get technical and French with it, you call it Leroi. But we won't do that to everybody.
I'm glad you straightened me out on that because I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Now,
it's cool, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great now. Like I said, normally we talk to you about your other project, Granny for Barrel. Today you're talking about the new band, Leroi. So how long has that been? This project been together?
So this has been together since sometime in May.
Okay.
A few months back, May of 2020, and it started out as a it's a collaboration with the potential to actually be a band. I mean,
okay.
We did an interview with Matt Pinfield that's actually going to air this Saturday on Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles.
Oh, wow.
And in that 1 hour interview, we talk about, Matt starts pushing us. He's like, man, I really love this track, you guys. So, what's in store? I know it was a collaboration. Is this a band? What is it?
Yeah.
And everybody was like, they were all in agreement. They were like, man, this would be a kick-ass band. So I guess we just let the rock community decide for us. I mean, we love it. We've grown some friendships because of this. We think we, created some really, a really cool piece of music, and we're very happy with it. So,
the current single that we're going to talk to you about today is a great cover of a Dio classic, Stand Up and Shout. And I was curious, are you guys releasing this on your own, or do you have anything to do with the Cancer Foundation, the Ronnie James Dio Cancer Foundation?
So we do, in that we have the full endorsement from Wendy Dio.
Okay, great.
A very nice quote from Wendy. And so the Stand Up and Shout Foundation, diocancerfund.org, it's a 501c not-for-profit.
Okay, great.
And it has a board of directors, and they unanimously support and endorse what we're doing. So they're also behind this to help promote it as well, because 100% of the proceeds from this song go back to the foundation. So we don't keep a penny of it.
That is great to know. Now, obviously you did this song because I'm sure you're a Ronnie Dio fan, but talk a little bit about...
Huge.
But when Ronnie came on your radar, as far as you first become aware of him in Rainbow, Black Sabbath, Dio?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm talking, I heard Man on the Silver Mountain
there
on the
you
radio.
Go. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was like an active rock track.
Yeah.
If you want to call it active rock. Back in the day, it was like, Rainbow was was one of the big bands.
Oh, yeah.
Ronnie Dio was the singer of that band, and they had a hit. They had a couple hits, Long Live Rock and Roll and Man on the Silver Mountain. But yeah, that was my first experience. And then after that, well, then he joined Sabbath.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was, I continued to be hooked. But then I went back into the history and then started to discover Elf and some of the other projects that he'd been involved in.
Yeah, Black Sabbath was it for me. I mean, especially that first Heaven and Hell album. I remember the first time I heard the song Neon Nights. I mean, that was a song for me. And I remember, when it first announced Ozzy had left the band, everybody was like, oh, there's no way Sabbath can make it without Ozzy. But you know what? Ozzy and Dio, two different singers, are both great singers in their own right. But I think the thing with Ronnie joining Black Sabbath, Ronnie was such a great lyricist. I mean, you just listen to the lyrics to some of those songs, and demons and dragons and wizards and witches. And I mean, he really took you on a musical journey. I mean, I could close my eyes. I could imagine I was there,
Exactly, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, because both singers are fantastic. They have their own, their own persona that they portray in that band.
Yeah.
And, but Ronnie had his own thing too. And I always loved, like you said, it's like the dragons and I feel like Ronnie had this persona that was like, he's kind of like this chivalrous, regal character from out of King Arthur's court. And I always liked that that's always appealed to me. But yeah, he had some very kind of mystical, otherworldly lyrics, and I was very I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, even like if you watch the Dio's music video for Rainbow in the Dark, I mean, he's got the sword and everything all through there. He was all into that stuff. But yeah, talk about your guys' covering Stand Up and Shout. What was it about that song that you kind of said, that's a Dio song I want to cover?
Well, the first reason was because, it's got a great tie-in with the foundation. When
so true.
Decided that, hey, we should do this and we should do it for charity. Well, it's called Stand Up and Shout.
Yeah, there you go.
The charity is, and I was like, but that's one of my favorite songs to sing live. In all the bands I've been in over the years, there's always been some type of a Dio cover. And more than not, it's always been at least Stand Up and Shout. So I'm very comfortable singing the song. I love it. It's got a lot of power. It's got a positive message about self-empowerment, taking charge of your destiny. And especially in these times, it's like, hey, let's put this out. It's good vibes all around.
And it's great. It's a great song. Like it has a great rallying call. Like I could just picture you up on stage and kind of getting the crowd up on their feet. And hey, join in. Have some fun. A great anthem.
Absolutely.
And now let me ask you. I know we're not talking so much about Granny for a Barrel, but has Granny ever had any desire to cover a Dio tune?
Oh, yeah. I mean, since I guess Granny is indirectly related to me.
Yeah. and
Granny actually is doing it. And, we played, there's been a lot of live shows that Granny has pulled out some old Sabbath,
Off
the Edge of the World, Neon Nights, Stand Up and Shout.
All great songs. Wow.
A whole array of, any of that is fantastic.
And I imagine, Terry, that's another thing about this project that's got to be like kind of cool for you, because you have that freedom to kind of not have to get all up in the Granny costume and all made up and everything. Just go up, go in the studio and do this and just kind of be yourself. You don't have to have all that extra, kind of a costume, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's two separate projects.
Oh, I get that very much.
And it's also, it is kind of one and the same, too. So, I mean, you could liken it, not that I'm comparing
I hear you.
This, but, it's kind of like a Slipknot Stone Sour thing.
Yeah.
In a way, right? It's like, I want to be able to not be, a type of character, which I love. I love it. I really do. But I also want to be, just one of the rock boys too.
Yeah, I guess.
Out with my boys. Right?
Well, I get it very much. I guess the point I'm making is almost like kind of like shedding your skin in a way, because if you wanted to, be Granny for a Barrel all 24 hours a day, you would. But this gives you the opportunity to, if you're going to do another project, you don't want it sounding or looking like what you're known for. You want it to be just a little bit different, Otherwise, you'd stick with what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly, Jason. And also too, because of the seriousness of this, it was like, this is for Ronnie Dio, and a lot of respect, and it's like, this is like, let's just gonna be ourselves here, and we're gonna do this thing, and it's.
And I got to congratulate, because I've seen since I got the press release from your publicist about the single, I've been seeing the video pop up all over the internet and stuff. So you guys are getting like a huge response, and that's got to be a great feeling for you.
It's a great feeling, I think it's been about 9 days.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually been up, and I think on Facebook it's got, I don't know, 150,000 views on it. And it's got like 180 or 90 comments. And the streams are going up on Spotify too.
Yeah.
It'd be great if everybody rallied behind it, because again, the point of this is to raise money. So, share away, tell everybody about this. I mean, I think probably everybody has been affected in some way in their circle by cancer. Yeah,
I mean, how many of us know at least one or two people have died of cancer throughout our life? I mean, even just recently, a matter of days ago, this past weekend, Alex Trebek finally, the host from Jeopardy, he finally lost his battle.
I know, so sad to hear that.
And then I got also mentioned in here, while we're on the subject of cancer, of course, the recently departed Eddie Van Halen. I mean, and when you talk about him, what a fighter! I mean, when I wasn't totally surprised when I got word that he had passed, because there had been rumors going around for like the last year that he'd been going back between the U.S. and Europe for treatment.
Yeah.
But when I heard, when they also announced his death, they also reported that he'd been battling his cancer since like 2000. What a trooper! I mean, that is a guy that had, yeah, he lost his battle, but he had fight in him for 20 years,
Yes, he did. He did.
Yeah.
He was. They only make one of those.
Yeah. I mean, that's a rare thing, but
Eddie Van Halen, man, that is a hard hit for the community, for the rock community, for the world.
Yeah. And so talk about some of the other guys in the band with you.
Sure.
I mean, who are
where would you like me to start?
I guess as far as who they are, like who are the other members for anybody that doesn't know?
Okay, so we've got Will Hunt and Troy McLaughlin from Evanescence.
Oh, wow.
So Will is the drummer and Troy is the guitar player. And we also have Aaron Pauley, who is currently the front man of Mice and Men. But he was the bass player, and he's a fantastic all-around musician. He's playing bass. Uh-huh. And then we have the shredder phenom guitar player, Sammy Baller, Boller. Go look him up on Instagram.
Okay.
He's got like 100,000 followers, and every video he puts up gets like 150,000 views. He's he's fantastic. And so these are the guys that are all lending their talents to us.
And how did you hook up with these other guys? I mean, did you know them from the music scene? Were they friends of yours, or did you just reach out to them?
So Aaron Pauley, he and I and David Bendeth for over a year now have been going back and forth doing some co-writing. Uh-huh. It was before all of this, and so we had that relationship. The other guys, David Bendeth brought to the table, our producer. Wow. So when I sat down with David and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this track. What do you think?" And I was like, "Hey, let's do this for charity. What do you think?" He said, "Oh, I love the idea." I was like, "Okay, so who we gonna get to do this?" And he said, "Oh, I got a list of guys right here." So we sat there like literally that moment and made some phone calls, and all the guys except for Troy were in. And the reason that Troy wasn't was because we already had a guitar player. This was originally going to be a four-piece. It was going to be Sammy, it was going to be Will, it was going to be Aaron and I. Wow. But what worked out to our advantage and made this even better than we could have even imagined was that obviously Will and Troy, they hang out. So they speak to each other, and Troy had, been talking to Will and, "Hey, what's going on?" And Will's like, "Oh, man, I'm doing this thing for charity. You got to check this out, this Dio track." Wow. And Troy was like, "Oh, wow. I'd really like to, put some tracks down on it if I could." And he knows David Bendeth. Yeah. Now, I was unaware of any of this, but the next thing I know, I get an email from David Bendeth, and he goes, "Hey, check out these guitar parts from Troy." And I was like, "Wow, dude." I was "Are you serious?" I was like, "This is fucking awesome." Yeah. And so then I got a hold of Troy, and I was like, "Dude," I was like, "This is amazing. Like, do you want to be part of this?" And he's like, "Oh, hell yeah." He goes, I just did it for fun, man." He goes, "Because I was teaching somebody, I think he said his son, some Dio at the time, actually, kind of serendipitously." And he said, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I've always loved Dio, but a huge Vivian Campbell influence." Oh, wow. And so he said, "I'm in." So then there you go. That's how everybody kind of got involved.
And so it
just was a natural evolution.
Oh, wow, cool. So talk about the recording of the song. Were you guys all in the same room together, or did you kind of record it the modern day way, which is y'all record your parts separately and piece the track together?
Well, so a couple of things. Uh-huh. First of all, I think when did coronavirus lockdown start? March-ish? Around there? Yeah. So that kind of clamped down on the music industry.
Okay, yeah.
And once that happened, it was like, okay, well, if we're going to do anything, especially recording, it's going to have to be done remotely. Wow. So we had to get creative. And, it's interesting because this track, none of the guys were ever in the same room. We've never even personally, physically met each other.
Amazing. Now that is one for the books, because, I mean, like we said, that's the modern way. Even before coronavirus, a lot of people were recording. But I can't really think of too many bands where the guys had never been in a room together and shaking hands. That's one for the books.
It sure is, and it's interesting too because someone was asking me, well, how do you capture emotion?
Yeah.
And how do you capture? How do you translate this? And the answer is, well, when you have world-class musicians like those guys, and you have a great track, a well-written song, and you have David Bendeth as your producer, it can be done.
Yeah.
We just proved it. And, it's all about the vibe and the intention, right?
Yeah.
Whether there were people in the room or not, if that individual artist is really putting his positive vibes and his intention into saying, I'm going to give this my all, that translates in the recording. It really does. It's all about honesty.
Yeah, and talk about the video that's up there that's been going around. That's pretty cool looking video. I mean, if you guys weren't in the room together, it sure appeared like you were, but
well, that's another thing.
Modern
Jason,
technology.
It was like, so this is how it originally started. And again, it kind of took on a life of its own. So after the song was recorded, while the song was being recorded, I was like, hey guys, if you could, get your iPhones out, whatever, and can you just give me some footage. I want to, just have something for the records.
Yeah.
And maybe we can put together, because we had no idea that it was going to turn into what it is right now.
Okay.
How well it's doing. So next thing you know, someone sends me a video during their parts, and they say, hey, what do you think of this? And I was like, oh, you did the whole song. Oh, that's fantastic. And then it was like, well, okay, you just set the standard. Let's all do the whole song. Let's not just have pieces.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes footage. Let's have the whole song. And then it's like, well, holy shit, guys. Well, this is a video.
All the footage you must have, yeah. I mean,
so that's how that came together.
Oh, amazing, and it is kind of amazing. A lot of people are doing projects like this because you're kind of locked down right now. Now, could you see, like, if everything was to ever go back to normal, this band doing live shows, or is that anything you guys have discussed?
We absolutely have discussed it, and we would love to do that.
Yeah.
This would be a kick-ass band. We've drummed up quite a friendship amongst us, and we're very happy with what we accomplished with this, and we feel like we'd love to bring this to an audience. We'd love to bring this around. I mean, it would be a great band, Jason.
Yeah, that's my thought. Just watching the one video so far. Now, I guess the next step would be possibility of you guys like I guess you could take it two ways. That the band could either continue to record great cover tunes, but probably what makes more sense to start writing your own original tunes.
Absolutely. Well, funny you should mention that.
Yeah. Okay.
Because, as we discussed in the past with Granny Four Barrel, when's this record going to come out?
Yeah.
For Granny, when are you guys, when's that going to happen? And we kept releasing singles, but we kept sitting on all of this music. So we have quite a cachet of original music, and the last 3 tracks that we recorded about a year ago, when David and Bendeth and I were discussing the finer details, and one of those songs was co-written with Aaron Pauley. Yeah. We were like, is this Granny Four Barrel music, or is this something else?
Yeah.
It was like, we obviously when I go in as under the guise of Granny. Yeah. I don't dress up like that in the studio, actually.
I got you.
It would really be impractical. But I'm just writing from a perspective.
Yeah.
And it's really my perspective. So, David and I pick a topic, some idea that we have that we think is, an honest, good topic that we want to write about.
Yeah.
We go in and we start creating something, and then it starts to take on a life of its own. So to answer your question, we have
a ton of material already.
Enough music. We have enough music. I'm like, let's put this Leroi 13 project out, and let's just see what the response is, because I'm willing to go either way. I mean, I'd love to to be in both projects, anyways. Granny does her thing, and Leroi 13 does another thing.
I mean, like you said, Corey Taylor does both Slipknot and Stone Sour, two different entities, so why not?
Love it. I like spinning lots of plates anyways. I'm a multitasker, so I'm fine with being in two bands.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned, hey, I don't get dressed up like Granny when I go in the studio, but it's funny because I remember back in the day, I'm a huge Kiss fan, and Kiss back in the day, they would get, even everywhere they'd go, like anything Kiss related, they'd always be made up, even in the studio. And that of course
that's being true to your art,
and
never
that was
going out of character.
that was true. That was like you said, true to the art form. That was and that was before the internet, because even back then they were really strict about people getting photos with them, outside of their makeup or anything, or trying to, and they take people's film and stuff. But now talking a little more about the name, I want to ask. Obviously, Leroi is named after you, but talk a little bit about the 13.
So yes, Leroi is my last name.
Yeah.
And 13 is the actual number in my musical career. This is technically the 13th project that I've been involved in.
Wow.
Strangely enough, and coincidentally, because 13 is a great heavy metal number. Some people think that it's, you
bad luck.
Superstitious about it, and it can be bad luck, but if you go ahead and Google 13, is it lucky or unlucky, and you get 50-50. Some people are like, no, this is the most magical number. To me, anything with a 3 has, it definitely has some spiritual connotations to it. I've always loved 3. It's a number that kind of follows me around in my life. And what's interesting, and this wasn't planned, but when you spell out the name Leroi 13, so spell it Leroi and then Thirteen, it has 13 letters. And I was like, what the fuck? That's great.
Wasn't even thinking about that, yeah. Now, do you believe, like, are you too superstitious yourself, like, where you actually find yourself believing some of that stuff, or you're like, nah, that's just fairy tale stuff?
My mind is really open to all that kind of stuff. Anything that's negative, I don't really venture into. I don't believe in bad luck. I just believe in a positive attitude, and things happen in life, not because the black cat walked in
exactly,
or the mirror broke, or I walked under a ladder. It's like, dude, let's
get real.
Wives' tales, right?
Yeah, I hear you. And let me ask you, it must be also a lot more freeing to have this project, in the sense that you don't have to have, like, there's not necessarily a box because it's a new project of what the band's supposed to sound like just yet. You can kind of go in there and as you're speaking, you're kind of creating the sound of a band,
Exactly. And just so people know too, like, if you dig into the catalog of anything I've done in the past, including Titanium Black, and you can go on YouTube, and I think someone put that album up. We did a record with Michael Wagner, legendary Michael Wagner, a few years back, and it was a great record. But you can listen stylistically to my singing style, and it's you can hear it in Dio. I mean, he's a huge influence for me. He really is. Bruce Dickinson, Rob Halford. My voice in my anatomy is more suited to a Dickinson Dio style more than Halford. He's just a freak of nature, and I mean that in a good way. He's got one of the most incredible voices I've ever heard. He's got so many different tones and qualities to his voice. But Ronnie and Bruce Dickinson are like, in my opinion, those guys are considered pure singers.
They're like
full vibrato, like operatic and power and full voice, and I kind of find myself attracted to that, and that's kind of what my style was based on. I mean, those guys are huge influences for me, and I think Dio, above all else, was the biggest vocal influence. Oh
wow, that's amazing, and I think people be interested to learn that. We knew Ronnie James Dio is a legendary singer, but he is. He could play many instruments, and I guess a lot of people didn't know this, but his main instrument, I guess, was a bass guitar. A lot of times, even though he had a great band of musicians backing him up, he would go in the studio, like when he'd be writing tunes, and a lot of times he'd start he'd come up with a bass riff or something, and he'd just be goofing around on all these different instruments. But that was his thing. He wanted to be known for was his singing, I guess. But he could play the bass.
That was his. Of all of his talents, that was the feature right there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I gotta tell you, the last time I seen Dio in concert was actually when he was at Black Sabbath, and they were calling themselves at the time Heaven and Hell. But it's amazing. You see this guy, little tiny guy. I mean, he literally almost looked like an elf up on stage. But the amazing thing is, you got this little tiny guy on stage, and you look at him. And I'm a little bit back in the stadium, and amazing powerhouse voice just comes out of this guy. I mean, it was amazing. And
no denying that.
And then at the same time, he could sing like an angel. I mean, he could do it all. And
Ronnie has this otherworldly quality to his voice where he can sing. He's pretty as an angel, and then he can sound like a roaring lion or the devil. Yeah. And it's so powerful. It's such a juxtaposition between the two, sounds. But it's Ronnie Dio, man.
And let me ask you, Terry, like with the new band, do you think you'll do it very much like with Granny for a Barrel, which is you're going to start off maybe releasing a track at a time. And the reason I ask, I think not only is that the modern way, but in a way, it's cool to do it that way because, back when we were growing up, you'd go buy the whole album by a band, and they'd have this. A lot of times, the album, all the songs kind of they seem like they fit on the album, or they belong together. Where you don't necessarily get that. You might record some of these songs, months apart. Might record them in different studios. They don't all have the same sound, or they don't necessarily have to. What do you think about that? Because to me, it's kind of a little bit of a refreshing thing. That's kind of one cool thing to me about doing it that way.
You mean what's refreshing?
For example,
singles?
Yeah, in a sense, because I remember back in the day, at least when I was growing up, like I would go, let's say, Get Destroyer, let's say by Kiss, and you listen to the whole album. And you'd have that feeling that, these songs on this album, they all sound alike, or they all sound like they belong together. Or, the bands would go in and they'd have this feeling, we got to make sure these songs all sound kind of like they belong in the same album, Where doing it the modern way like you've been doing, there's not necessarily that pressure to do that. It can kind of sound like, each song wants to. Give it a kind of a life of its own as opposed to have 10 tracks that sound all the same,
Yeah, it's true. It's just it's kind of the model of the music industry right now. Really, unless you're a massive artist, and in which they do the same thing too. Releasing singles is kind of the way to go. And give them their focus and let them do all the things that they can do. Those singles. And then when that cycle goes past, then it's time for another song. So in this case, we're coming upon the second week of the release of this track. We'll probably work it for 6 to 8 weeks and let it do its thing. If it wants to go longer, naturally, let it do its thing, and then we're ready.
And now let me ask.
Time to put another song out.
Now let me ask you one final question, because I know your time is limited today. In regards to Granny for a Barrel. Are you at the point where you've got enough songs out where you think maybe next year, maybe the year after, you might have enough material to put out a whole album, like if people wanted to have a collection?
We absolutely do have enough material. Because there was another whole group of songs that we had recorded with Jeff Tomei, legendary producer Jeff Tomei, a couple of years ago when we were in Jesse Dupree's studio in Atlanta, actually Kennesaw, Georgia. And those songs were a little more, when you listen to Freak Flag and it's got the violin in there, they were predominantly more, they had some violin in them. They had a little more of that kind of feel element in there. But we have a bunch of those songs. We're just sitting on, waiting for the right time
to do it.
Stars have to align right, and then we say, what, it's time. But first thing you need to do to put out an album and feel really good about it is we got to be able to get out there and tour again.
Makes sense.
Like how you gonna support this? And it means a lot when you can actually have songs on the radio and the fans listen to those songs, and then 2 weeks later that band is in their city playing it. You know what I mean? That's the way you're supposed to do it.
Well, we'll continue to follow you, on all your sites. And I guess awesome. I guess the very last thing I do want to ask, this really is the final question, is
sure.
In regards to COVID-19. I see stuff on TV. I'm in Los Angeles. I know you're in New York. Is New York really kind of like the ghost town you see it is on TV? I mean, how about the area where you live? What's it like there, and how's it really affected you?
So yeah, the city, New York City, is definitely taken a hard hit, and that was like the epicenter of the virus at one point.
Yeah.
But we live 300 miles north. I live in a little town called Oswego.
Oh, wow.
It's right on Lake Ontario. We're about 60 miles from Canada.
Oh, wow.
We haven't had a lot of cases up here at all. You can look at it's Oswego County, so if you want to look at your
map,
if people want to look that up, they can see that. We still use all the protocol up here. Everybody's walking around with masks, and we're doing what we can do to.
You're at least able to get out and do some things, huh?
Yes. Yeah, but again, you got to understand too. This isn't New York City. This is farm country up here.
Oh, okay.
So, most people have a piece of land, and they have 5 acres or 10 acres. So there's a lot. The cities aren't crowded. Public transportation isn't the same as in New York City. You just don't have as many bodies up here.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're able to get out and do some of that stuff and not have to be locked down all the time. But thanks for doing the interview today, Terry. And the interview
Jason, thank you, man. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, anytime. And just so you know, the interview will probably be going up in early December. I'll let you know the minute it goes up, and at that point you're able to post on all your sites or whatever you want to do with it. Take care, my friend.
You too, buddy.
Okay, bye-bye.